The year is 1994. Nelson Mandela was elected president of South Africa. The PlayStation 1 made its way onto the scene. Oasis released their debut album, and most importantly, a particularly nice ride kart made its way out of a shed somewhere in Cambridgeshire. More on that later. But yours truly didn't even rock up until 1999, and not only did I miss out on an ear, but arguably the greatest era in kart racing. Gone are the air-cooled 100cc engines of the past, and over the years karts got heavier, bulkier, clad with ECUs, water pumps, radiators. The X30 water pump system alone wants to make a grown man cry, and CFD aerodynamic fairings that look like a punch lasagna off Fever Street. T-mornings and lorries dominate the paddock. When I did the UKC, there was even a motorhome with a facial recognition or a fingerprint scanner. Gone are the grassroots days where people used to work on their karts on the floor for some reason. Now it's just a playground for Tarquin and Daddy's Little Angels to smash into each other. But the spirit of the 90s is still preserved. As some of you all know in my last video, I took part in the F100 Spirit of the 90s Championship and won in pre-2000 on debut. These karts are nimble, light, and just the noise alone.
Just the noise. Orgasmic.
Right?
Oh, God.
What? Oh, no, you've got a parallel back, Come on, GMS. GMS pushers.
I've come to watch you fall over again.
Yeah. I've done that once.
Yeah, I want to watch it.
Yeah. But what was brilliant, it was on the grass. It started me on the pace. Like new cop news that slip. It kills the car.
Used it close.
Yeah. It kills the finish.
I say you can see the front of
So earlier this year, I was reunited with the pre-2000 Tony kart that I used at Clay last year, just for a bit more F100 fun really. Thank you very much to Jay Fairbrass and Steve Stapley who made this possible. But yeah, just for a bit of fun around my local Buckmore Park, a track I absolutely adore, and potentially evaluating a move to this class in 2025 as we push off for the first time. Of course, no clutch, no starter on these karts. Thankfully running downhill this time, so it was a bit easier, and even better, Steve didn't fall over as he was absolutely jubilant, you can see. Yeah, I had so much fun at Clay Pigeon, and this is a class that really appeals to me, so I just wanted to get another run in it, so I waved to Paul there. Yeah, just wanted to get another run out in one of these karts and think about this more seriously, ask a few more questions, learn a bit more about the engines, and just generally have a bit of fun really. This was a good chance to get some laps in for the Southeast Champs at this very venue in May. Now, if you can't tell from these clips, we were absolutely flying on this day. Now, I'm just going to shut up here and let you enjoy some glorious two-stroke racket from one of these air-cooled engines. Yeah, the day ran pretty smoothly without any mechanical hiccups or breakdowns. We were hovering around sort of the mid to low 39s all day, which was absolutely rapid. But yeah, if I wasn't sure before, I knew now that I had to get one of these karts. And so it was after this test day, I decided I'm going to be making the switch to race in F100 with 100cc air-cooled engines from the 90s. You're probably wondering, why are you making the switch? Now, I've done Rotax for probably 6-7 years now, on and off. And despite some of the snobbery in the 100cc community, I do actually quite like the package. I'm even still representing GMS to this day. I was talking about Crossroads really. To upgrade and rebuild my engine alone was going to be equal to a complete package in pre-95 or pre-2000. F100 is something I've been eyeing up for years now. I remember going back to watch a Buckmore Park in 2018 just to see the spectacular night race around there. The noise and sparks, it's just a proper spectacle. Which I kind of feel is, I'm a bit of a purist, I think that's missing a little bit in modern karting. But yeah, I think the Rotax is still a great package, it's very reliable and what have you, but it's time to, why not do something different? Now, originally I was aiming for the Southeast Champs in May to be my first race of the year in F100. And about 2-3 weeks after the Buckmore Park test, Andrew Brunton got in touch with me to say a space had opened up for the Clays of Hazard race in March. Now, for those of you who don't know, last year, Andrew Brunton and Monty hosted a charity event called Clays of Thunder. Super popular event, raised a load of money, about £4,000 or £5,000 for the Teenage Cancer Trust, so absolutely brilliant cause. And had a huge grid of these retro karts. Now, this year was no different, and the entry list at the time had about 60 karts signed up, which is monumental. And I knew there and then that I was not going to get a better opportunity all year to race these karts. It's unlikely to see a grid that large in this day and age. So I thought, yeah, sign me up. At that point, I didn't even have a kart. So obviously last year I did a race in pre-2000 and I was with the Jag Motorsport boys in their awning. And I actually got in touch with some of them after the test day, and Andrew Everett actually had some spare kit going for me at a pre-95 package that I chucked a seat in and bought 5 days before the race in true Will Barnes fashion. Now, these engines are quite fragile compared to your modern day water-cooled stuff. So it's not uncommon for people to bring 3, 4, 5, maybe more engines to each meeting. I've got one engine. I have run myself before in Rotax, as some of you know if you follow the channel for a while. I have had to step in and be my own mechanic, and you know, on a good day I can run myself. It can be a bit frantic, but you know, I can grit my teeth for a weekend. At this point, people are going up to me like, "You're mad," and yeah, they're completely and utterly justified to think so, but why not, right? I knew I was not going to get a better opportunity to race a grid this large, so let's get stuck in. Let's get our elbows out. Have a bit. Let's just try and learn as much as we can. But yeah, so all in all, I've got no knowledge, no mechanic, no spares, and one engine. What could possibly go wrong, right? So here it is, my weapon of choice, this 1994 Wright kart with an Ibea L2 carb and a Pirelli TT75 engine. No time to prep really, just 5 days before the race, chuck a seat in, chuck it in the back of a van. My trailer actually broke down on the way to the race, typical sod's law. Rock up to the track on Friday, and to be honest, from initial impressions with testing, apart from finding everything rattled itself to bits, the kart was actually pretty decent. I could put it more or less where I wanted. The main thing was getting used to the jets and try and find a sweet spot on the power delivery. So after a day of running around in the dry, it actually didn't matter at all because it tipped it down in time for qualifying and the first heat, which you're going to see now. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on this event as the main focus of it is the Southeast Champs, but I just wanted to show you one of these absolutely hectic heats. This is on Friday afternoon / evening, last race of the day, and as you can already see from this outlap, it is treacherous. I've never driven clay pigeon in the wet. I've never done much running on these Comet K1W wets either, and I've barely done 3 or 4 sessions in this car, and we're going straight into a race. So wish me luck as we head to the start. Someone hauls on the anchors on the rolling start, and yeah, these karts do not like to go slow at the best of times as they tend to oil up. So we're going straight into turn 1. Cannot see a thing unless you're out in the lead in the wet. You're basically just precision guesswork as we head down to the first hairpin, trying to break off the rubber where it's slippery. And this was actually an aborted start, thankfully, so we got a bit of a dress rehearsal. Get to go around again. If you see people pointing in the air, they aren't disco moves, they are just signaling to go around again as we finally get going on the start, and the visibility is even worse. We just sort of aim to put our car, if anyone leaves a gap, we're in that gap. Absolutely muller these curves to get any sort of rotation in the wet. And I didn't actually have time to put any setup on this kart whatsoever. It was a case of, right, chuck some wets on, guess the width, no sort of caster camber, toe in, out, nothing, just put some wets on and pray for the best, basically. Didn't even go in on the low jet or anything. I don't think we even added any teeth on the gearing. We just simply did not have time as a one-man band, as I mentioned earlier. Lighting it up on the paint, as you can hear. This was exciting. Absolutely crazy, but I love this race. Cutting forward now to a bit later, we did lose a touch from the main pack, but we did have this nice little squabble, and we're going to go for a humongous send into the chicane, finding some grip on the inside there off the racing line, but we survived that heat, and that was just the key thing. The rest of the weekend, we were just chasing performance, really. Could put the kart more or less where I wanted in the corners, but just couldn't quite crack the jets on the straight and getting the settings right, as Andrew Brunson goes for a monumental send from a different postcode. I have to credit him there. Paul Warner sweeps through the pair of us with an absolutely beautiful display of driving. I have to hand it to him. But yeah, we were just chasing performance, really. Could not quite get the engine to run sweetly. As we see Matt Dobson make a mistake there. We close right in on him, on his bumper as we come to the straight, and he just pulls away. Now, Matt was in the FSA class with the slide carb, but we should not be trailing by that much. And again, no offence to Matt, but makes a mockery of the chicane and still manages to pull away. We're completely flat through the chicane, so that kind of tells you we had an issue. And then Saturday got even worse. We had a split in the fuel tank that I did not have time to bodge fix. And ended up in the B final, or repecharge, when we would have safely made it through if it went for a silly mechanical. So I ended up battling away in the B final for the last spot to the A final. And this is probably the sweetest I got the kart to run all weekend. Just a bit too little too late, really. You can see we can put the kart more or less where we want it. We can pull it down to the apex and get a lovely little cutback. Decided not to defend the inside, just brake silly late, and that came up to bite me in the end. But this was a really fun race in the end, and this was all about learning, because I've never run myself in any other class other than Rotax, and this is a completely different kettle of fish altogether. There's no dampening of the vibrations because there's no clutch, so everything rattles itself to bits, everything breaks, and when you're on your own, that's an absolute nightmare. And we would actually just miss out on transferring to the A final by one spot, which was a shame. But yeah, as you can see by the spots in the visor there, I had fuel pissing out my fuel tank, and that probably would have made us underweight anyway, even if we had made it through. But I thoroughly enjoyed this weekend, thoroughly enjoyed the night out that followed as well. But yeah, this is a baptism of fire, and just sort of a trial run before the Southeast Champs at Buckmore. And I came back into the pits with a soaking set of overalls covered in fuel, which I can't get the smell out of months later. Oh, it burns. Clearly some TLC was in order. As you can see, there was a crack in the fuel tank, so I had to scavenge the internet for a tank that would fit this car. Whip that out, as you can see, pretty gungy. Want to preserve this lovely original right floor tray, so clean that up a treat. New pickups with a new tank. Obviously there's a lot of oil in the fuel and needs to degrade over time, so I chucked the old tank out, put the new one in, got the engine off, repositioned some lead, just generally giving everything a little bit of a clean. Whipped the old axle out, gave everything a clean, lube in the bearings, decided not to replace them this time, but probably will do next meeting. Refitting all the brake components, just checking over the disc, checking for cracks, just general maintenance really. And the finishing touch was replacing the cursed race number, thanks to my amazing girlfriend for the handiwork on that. And we were ready for the Southeast Champs at Buckmore Park. Back at local, it was time to see what my mates thought of it.
Antique farm equipment. Never seen that.
Well, the extra rail? Fourth rail, yeah. Some people cut them.
I'm guessing it's very stiff.
The brake on this is monumental.
Does it come apart and you send it into the railroad?
There we are pushing off for practice on Saturday at the South East Champs. It's Buckmore Park in the glorious sunshine. And yeah, Steve Stapley back on the spanners. Thank you very much to him for his services this weekend, because clearly we needed a mechanic, we needed the knowledge. And yeah, Saturday was a reasonably good day. We're pretty much straight out the pits, flat out from lap 1. Not everyone had the same approach, and the main order of the day was just traffic. Lots of people fanning about, and with a couple of minutes left in the session, I just had enough, so I came in. Quite hard to learn anything meaningful when people are pootling around.
Alright, you right? They don't half out there, do they?
But yeah, order of the day was pretty good. Tried another motor that I purchased in advance of this weekend. Bolted that on for the third or fourth session, and ready to give it a try. Another TT75. And yeah, let's see how it goes. So this was a suboptimal start to the session. Seemed like the engine just oiled up or had been filled up with oil last time it had been used. But yeah, Kart is absolutely laden full of lead, and there was no way I was push starting that.
It's too heavy, really. I got too much lead on that, so...
So this is the face of a man who didn't believe me that this kart was too heavy to push start.
Yeah, I wasn't lying.
They all sitting in there, look. You know, I was fill the bearings up or stop it. Yeah. And that's the one you've got.
We checked the lasers on the car and found it was about as straight as a Friday night in Brighton. But luckily we managed to get back out again on my original motor. So things were relatively straightforward for another session or so, nothing really to note. It was only later in the day, when the track was much grippier, I started having some other problems. Now, the red flag to me here was Andrew Godfrey going past. That's when I knew I was in trouble. Nah, Andrew's actually a reasonable peddler, I joke. Or two right-handers, I just had absolutely no grip. It was almost like a... Now, at first I thought it was just because of the track grip, but it was very clear something wasn't quite right.
That's not one of your race tyres, is it?
So a bit of a mixed bag in the end, but we prepped everything and cleaned it all down for tomorrow.
What's that?
There's something in the fuel. Look.
And we're already off to a hectic start. Go to fire up the kart first thing, and it just would not start at all. We had spark, we had fuel, we had compression, tried different motors, different carbs, but no joy until eventually we found there was a bit of moisture in the fuel lines, and it seems that our fuel somehow got contaminated overnight. So yeah, figure that one out. But luckily we get out for the second heat. So we have 3 randomly gridded heats, proper old school karting, and I've been very generously lent this motor and this carb by Cliff, so incredibly grateful to him for this. We didn't have time to go back to my original motor after swapping things about. So we've got another TT75 on with a HHC carb this time, a little bit different to the Ibea that I'm using, as that has 3 jets and this only has 2. So the settings are a little bit different to compensate for that. Now, normally at this point you get some awesome 360 GoPro footage, but it fell off after about 3 corners. So I have some footage of me trying to find carb jets from there. As we come around the final corner, hesitating ever so slightly off the bottom end, but we're away for heat 2, starting at the very back. We're going to send it around the outside. We have absolutely nothing to lose. Just threading the needle through the pack, trying to get to the inside line. And we've made up a couple of positions already, which is awesome. As we get to hairpin 2, the usual traffic jam ensues, and we manage to keep ourselves out of harm's way. Through the S's for the first time, absolutely flat out. This is such an awesome section of karting tracks in the UK. We line up Andrew Godfrey for a mighty send into paddock, pointing forwards to go after Tyler Whedon, who's in front of us. Now, he's the defending champion in pre-95, so if there's anyone I want to follow, it's going to be Shags McGee. as we go flat out. Lovely bit of understeer on the new tarmac through the final corner as we go on to lap 2. Engine almost stroking into the first corner, not really sure what's going on there. Did not really have the ideal settings, but whatever it was set to, I think it was about 120, it's absolutely rapid. Tyler going for a half move there, he actually hesitates on the apex, and what you find with these cars, they really do not like going slowly. Unlike the 125 Rotaxes that I'm used to racing, have a bit more torque on the bottom end. If you squabble and battle in these carts, you really bog down and lose time. That's what I'm finding so far. Is Josh Wagon and Owen Potter are squabbling out of Garda. Again, not just quite having the optimal release on this kart yet. Not wanting to tinker with the jets too much, as there's not a lot of time to go one-handed around this circuit. We go up the inside of Josh Wagon now, lining up Tyler Whedon, and we're going to chuck it up the inside, because why not? We might be a rookie in this class, but we're going to show ourselves what we're made of around Buckmore Park. Absolutely rapid around here, and we're flying through this middle sector here. Probably the quickest, or one of the quickest carts through here all weekend in this class, and we're setting our sights firmly on the train ahead. That's Owen Potter, Thomas Hadley, and Richard Plummer, or as he's known on the continent, Plummer. But yeah, trying to pull a gap on Tyler, because I know he's going to be very quick and breathing down our necks, and cutting forward a lap or so now. These guys are beginning to squabble ever so slightly as we go for a move into Garda. And there's, I think, Matt Dobson, who you'll know from our video last year. Owen Potter goes up the inside. We're going to try to follow through. Rule number 1 of racing, don't crash into your teammate. Rule number 2, don't crash into your engine builder. And we very nearly broke that rule last year at Clay, so I thought better of that move. Losing a bit out of the hairpin there, bogging down. Flat chat down the hill to some sweeping and into paddock now. Matt Dobson harks it on the apex, running into the back of him there. Have to go defensive as not to allow Tyler back through. So we just have to be a bit more patient. Want to be besties with Matt, so I think better of it and go into hairpin 1. Quite polite compared to last year, depending on your opinion. But less of that as we focus on our sights now on Richard Plummer, who's just losing touch of this train ahead, actually going off the track there, struggling a bit through paddock. Back in the day, that would have been grass and dirt. Buckmore Park has been flattened out and become a bit of a corporate car park, but it's still an awesome venue as we really close up through these corners now. This right brake system is absolutely ridiculous. Richie taking a weird line through there, and we start to hesitate on the exit of slow corners. Now this car wasn't particularly amazing off the corners to start with, but this is where my inexperience in 100cc and particularly retro 100cc starts to show. We're still absolutely rapid through the corners, but clearly the engine at this point is not quite running at its optimal settings. It's starting to get a little bit hot. Now, for reference, on the Saturday, we didn't actually have any issues at all with the engine. You could sort of set and forget it. And now my Micron has decided to strategically detach itself and become a 500-pound nunchuck. It's going to be swinging by the HT lead and aimed at my testicles as Tyler Whedon goes past. We're starting to struggle now. Just losing a bit of performances now. Matt Dobson is going to rub salt in the wound going into turn 1. And we just clearly don't have the release off the corners. Now the engine is going to be getting a little bit too hot. So clearly what I need to do there is adjust the jets. So you can either go in or out on the low or the high, as Andrew Godfrey now goes past us. And as this wasn't my car and wasn't my engine, I didn't particularly want to mess about, blow it up and, you know, add to my list of woes this weekend. I simply wanted to just try and bag some points, but now Josh Wagon has gone past us. And this motor is getting a bit hot. So we've only got a couple of minutes or so. I think this is the penultimate lap. And we just, bit of a sitting duck at this point. Now, in hindsight, I should have just tinkered with the jets, but yeah, aired on the side of caution that time around. And we still brought it home probably about 9th or something. The GoPro, as I look over there to see the GoPro's fallen off again. Just trying to bag some points. As I learned from last year when I had a DNS in the heat, it really made life difficult.
going, like last 5 minutes, it was just hesitating a bit.
The last 5 minutes.
Yeah, last 5 minutes I was shit. I went backwards.
Right.
But the start, it was rapid.
Now it's time for our third and final heat. We're going to be starting fifth in this one. It's worth noting, by the way, pre-2000 and pre-95 are mixed together for this event, just because of the numbers, just to make it a bit more fun. A grid of 20 karts is a lot more fun than a grid of 10. So some of the people ahead of us aren't actually in our class, and I reckon we can take the win in this one. There's Josh Wagon a little bit slow away, but I'm going to bide our time and get him back into hairpin one. Tyler Whedon just in front of us, nipped ahead of us on the start, but I know Tyler is a very quick driver to follow, and we showed we could get past him in heat one. Don't quite get the release again out of hairpin one. These karts do not like going slowly, but already making up for lost ground through this second sector. In class, we're about P3 in pre-95, so Richard Plummer is leading the way. Tyler Whedon second, we are third. So next lap, Tyler's going to go up the inside of Stuart Guest, who's a little bit slow. Now, as we come out this first corner, there's a yellow flashing panel, and Stuart's going to slow quite abruptly there, and he's going to gesticulate just to remind us to go into him a little bit harder next time. So I'll be sure to do that. Thank you very much, Stuart. But no, jokes aside, just got caught out a little bit there as we were already on Stuart's bumper when the yellow flag came out. Apologies to Stuart for that. He was actually very kind in lending us some fuel after we had that contaminated fuel issue. Chris Jiggin's actually going to look up the inside of us there. We're going to cover the inside into Garda. Just got a little bit held up trying to make our way past Stuart with that yellow flag. And as you can see, defending there lost a bit of time. But Stuart's going to be quite easy into turn one and easy pickings for us now, so we can focus on Richard Plummer ahead. Tyler's already got a few kart lengths on us on that lap, so we really need to make hay while the sun shines. Not panicking at this point, we're still pretty comfortable. We've definitely got some pace. We go flat out through here, we've got so much more speed. We get up the inside of Richard Plummer into paddock. Unfortunately, the cam box splices the videos and cuts out a few seconds of footage each time. But we're going to skip a bit later on into the race now. We're comfortably in second in pre-95. Tyler is pulling away slightly ahead of us. And Andrew Brunton, who you might remember from Clay Pigeon, he's in the pre-2000 class. He's absolutely flying, and he's going to make his way past us, ripping off this second hairpin. So you know it's just a matter of time until Andrew is going to seize the day and probably seize a motor. So we're not too concerned with him. We're actually quite a bit quicker through this middle sector here, clawing some time back. It seems to be we're just not quite in the optimal range for performance out the corners. That's what we need to probably focus on the jetting. I think the gearing was about right. That's something I need to learn for the future. So we're going to just try and tag along with Andrew here, see if he can pull us up to the field further ahead, see if he can just drag us up to Tyler. But yeah, we've got some good pace. We're comfortably second. Third place is a little bit far behind now. I'm going to cut forward now about a lap, and of course Andrew has seized another motor. And I was too busy chuckling, come around the next lap, and I thought I'd join him. To come eventually, my first F100 engine failure. It wasn't actually a seize, so we believe it may have been a piston failure. We're not entirely sure. All we know is that it looked like creme brulee. So it was time for the final, and we had to revert to the engine that we couldn't previously get to run on the Saturday.
Oh, sorry. Oh! I don't even know.
Ready? Go.
Right. It's in the way.
So this is the motor that I had problems with on the Saturday that was just oiled up, and now with a bit of fresh fuel going through it, it was running sweet as. So this was going to be a voyage of discovery on an engine that I'd never run. For the final race of the day, it's the Southeast Championships final. Let's go in F100, start from P16 We're not going to have quite as much luck going around the outside as we did in the second heat. We're going to just try and make it through these first few corners relatively unscathed. Outside didn't quite work for us there as Katie Baxter with a big lock up into hairpin 1. But we're going to get her back into hairpin 2. Andrew Brunson takes a trip over Aurelio through hairpin 2, and we just about keep the engine running. Got to take evasive action for Cliff there, and unfortunately Andrew Godfrey's going to come a cropper. So in avoiding Cliff there, and I did drift ever so slightly to the left. Now Andrew Godfrey was looking for a move there and unfortunately clipped us. So just a racing incident, unfortunately. Apologies to Andrew. Not really a lot I could have done, and that's made life a little bit difficult for us now as we're trying to get past Cliff, who's struggling for performance himself now, and a bit of a moving roadblock. So we have to try and dispatch him pretty quickly, because this final's been shortened to 8 minutes. Now I did accidentally nudge him through there. Apologies to Cliff. That wasn't payback for giving me a motor earlier. Yeah, I think he was having his own issues with carbs that day, unfortunately for him. We've got to get on with it now, and I'm pretty sure on this lap or the following lap we set the fastest lap of the race with the fastest middle sector, which was awesome. Now unfortunately the cam box actually ran out of battery, so it's not going to capture this full final, which is a shame because we actually had quite a good race in the end. We managed to claw our way up to about, I think, 5th or 6th. That was until we had the same issue as yesterday, where the tyre debeaded off the rim, and we were effectively driving on a flat tyre and 3 wheels, and our pace sort of just plummeted from that point. We managed to hang on. We weren't able to go and challenge for the podium, which is a shame really, because I felt a podium, at the very least P4 was on. We finished P4 in class, but I would have greatly loved the chance to go up with the big boys in the final. Not to be. I still had a fantastic weekend. Unfortunately, this is where the cam box died. But yeah, all in all, a fantastic weekend. I want to say a massive thank you to Steve, who worked tirelessly pushing my lead sled up that hill all weekend long, and Cliff as well for the equipment, Jay, the whole F100 family, Stuart. Greatly appreciate all the assistance to help get me back out there, and hopefully it won't be too long till we're back out again. Aiming to do a few more events this year, just a bit of a learning year. But yeah, thank you to everyone who watched this video. Stay tuned for more 100cc retro karting action, but until then, it's bye from me.